Good evening, everybody. It's 10:45 at night. I'm just hanging out in my office with my pretty little light-up tree. It's supposed to look like a cherry tree, but it has lights instead of just petal or blossoms. And anyway, I'm currently just doing some late night chores in my pajamas. It's a warm night out. It's unusual for October, actually, here in Alaska, because normally it's frosting over every morning and there's even some snowfall, and the last couple of winters have been, or not the last couple of winters, but the last winter was very rainy, which is unusual for this region of Alaska. Anyway, I thought I'd come on here. Excuse me, I'm feeling like sneezing. It's a little dusty in here. I have to vacuum off the shelves and stuff. But I logged on. I'm here because I wanted to just put out my thoughts on the Purple Revolution that we're seeing and everyone's conversations around it. But I wanted to share mine, and I want to be very explicit that this is only my perspective and my opinion. I will not speak for anybody else when I say what I'm going to say. I'll do the best I can to just keep it focused on my own experiences, like the whole opinion I have about it. But and also I want to say that some of what I'm about to say is inspired by critiques and feedback that I've received, that I meditated on and I thought about, contemplated on, so that I could understand how to better convey this opinion. So let me just show you. I got a big old laundry pile. I also have, I hope that background is fun. One of my siblings got that picture of the llama for my, and just hung it in my bathroom years ago. It's great. I decided to keep it. But yeah, I just thought I'd point out a couple things, and if it doesn't seem to resonate with you, I completely understand. Everyone's on their own journey. But I think the core idea of the Purple Revolution is very reactionary. And it's reactionary, and also, to me, it seems like it's based on, I understand how we're all almost in a scrambling state most of the time, trying to figure out what's going to work and what's not. And we're always trying to figure out when to brainstorm and when to take action, right? So there's a scramble and a confusion, and things are changing at a rapid clip all the time. And that, that can explain to me why we're just trying to figure out what's going on, what to do. And the problem I see, though, as a person who has survived horrific trauma, and as a person who has witnessed what generational trauma can do, ancestral trauma, assimilation, like forced assimilation, such as what happened with indigenous people and, Alaska Native people here in the boarding schools. Alaskan indigenous people and their families being separated and then forcibly assimilated in those boarding schools, which is a whole other thing. And as somebody who has, lived through my own personal traumatic experiences, there is no situation in which you need to force or obligate forgiveness that is a unhealthy construct that I think we all need to let go of. That, there's just no situation in which forced, obligated forgiveness is healthy. And rectification, resolution, and an actual counteraction to the harm that was caused, to me, is the apology. Action, real, effective action is the apology. And I think that, we all make horrific mistakes, but we always have the opportunity to at least disrupt the cycle on our end and not repeat it or continue it, right? And taking a look at a group of people who regret what they did, but are expecting us to skip a bunch of very important steps in moving forward past the harm that was caused, just so that they can feel okay and use others as a resource to achieve goals that sound reasonable, but it's so fresh we're just in a state where everything is so fresh, the wounds are still very fresh, and it's never fixed. And that's the problem, is there's a lot of bypassing, I think. I notice a lot of bypassing. And that's that's just a big issue I seem to notice, is that we aren't going to magically make things go away. And I think I said this in a previous video. It's a lot like being in a relationship, doing something heinous, right? Running away, not apologizing, not trying to fix it, coming back and trying to come back into the relationship without anything being changed and no inner reflection, and expecting it to just magically go away. It doesn't work that way. It'll just repeat the same pain, no growth, right? And so I kind of understand where it's coming from. I see that some people are being there could be some people in that group who are really hopeful and go, okay, I really do see what harm I caused. But the fact of the matter is, the impact of what was previously done still needs to be rectified. And you can't use people, period, but you can't use people who you wanted to wish harm on and actively had harmed with your vote. You can't use them as a resource to get away from the horrible, uncomfortable things that are happening. There has to be a resolution to the root cause of the issue. And I've said in the other previous video also that we need to take a look at our own deconstruction work. And I'll repeat it again. I received a critique recently that we need to take our work, our deconstructing work, back into our own communities and seek out the experts in those communities that know how to do it. You know? And you know, and also another part of this conversation that I'm hearing amongst, you know, some creators in some circles is that if you are just now getting out, and this personally made sense to me, I would say I recommend seeking out professional advice, licensed professional advice if you need to confirm this. But if you're just getting out of a dangerous situation, or a cult situation, or anything similar to that, or you're realizing, oh, my beliefs are harmful, it's not safe to declare yourself an expert. You know, you have to spend some time listening, I think. And I agree with whoever, the people I've heard who say that. I think that you can't claim to be a leader or an expert in deconstruction, in making a change for something. You have to take the time to listen and educate yourself, preferably quietly, right? Practice active listening. Learn a little bit about what active listening looks like. And take the time to figure out a real plan, since we're in a sort of an urgent, since we're in sort of an urgent situation right now, I'd say that the best thing we can do is, first of all, listen. And I mean like actively listen. Don't diminish or bulldoze. Actually listen. And then seek out the experts in your community, as I mentioned a couple minutes ago. And just don't presume that you're ready. Be prepared to support the people who are already doing the right thing. And identify the actions that are necessary in order for you to rectify the harm that's been caused. And the other thing I want to point out is there's just no way that I don't know if there's any way that this turns out well if we just keep repeating the same cycle. I recognize that in certain times, allyships are necessary and they differentiate from friendships. But sometimes I wonder if maybe things kind of move forward just a little bit into a new paradigm where we don't have to bypass certain steps anymore. Like, more and more people are becoming aware of better mental health, for example, and how to break ancestral trauma and trauma cycles in their own lives. And that could be reflected in the way we handle conflict and danger and instability on a mass scale. It makes me wonder, in a time when we are much more aware of setting boundaries and spending time recovering from traumatic things and prioritizing that as much as being proactive in the community, what will that do to change the way allyships look? You know, and this is why I invite, in one of my more recent videos in the last couple weeks, I put out the invitation to be the person in your family history who breaks the cycle of pain, trauma, moral injury, prejudice, continued toxic hierarchical beliefs, white supremacy, breaking that cycle. Are you going to be the person that does that and ends up making the world a better place and being happier because of it? Or are you going to keep pushing that forward? Because, you know, it kind of seems like the world moves forward and cultures move forward, certain cultures and certain realizations move forward and cannot be stopped, no matter how hard people may try or systems may try to stop it. It almost feels like if you aren't willing to let go of those old beliefs, the world can leave you behind. And it's better to be adaptive and nimble, metaphorically speaking, and understand that the way we all survive is not just this idea of conglomerating together into one singular unified group, but identifying where the responsibilities lie amongst and holding those in our community. Does the responsibility mean recovering from the harm that was done to certain groups and certain people in those groups? Is it understanding the harm that other groups have perpetuated and rectifying it amongst that community too? You know, I think it's good for all of us to reflect on, where do our responsibilities lie? You know, are we going to try to bypass the same steps all over again, repeat that cycle in history, or are we going to take the time to identify our communities, starting with our own homes in immediate circles, and without trying to fix other people, just figuring out, what are my duties and responsibilities? And that does not mean you're going out and fixing others necessarily. It could mean, again, setting boundaries and safety for yourself and understanding what safety is. And then also identifying what proactive things outside of that you can do to stop and slow the momentum of what's happening externally out in the world, right? In certain countries, you know which one I'm talking about, right? So yeah, I think that unity needs to be reevaluated. The idea of what unity looks like needs to be reevaluated. To me, unity is not about just sweeping up people who you've harmed and pushing out the outcome of a mistake you've made with nothing internal being changed, and then eventually with time it repeats itself again. I don't know. I don't know if that's the answer. I think unity is about respect and boundaries and community and working things out in your own community because I agree with the critique I received. I think that that's what unity is, and it creates a sense of groundedness and rootedness and stability and a sense of identity, reconnection with your true identity again. And then from that place, you can make clear, grounded decisions and understand, okay, well, this community I belong to is responsible for this thing. Let's seek out the leadership and the experts, the elders, so to speak, if I'm referencing my own lineage, who can help, help us work collectively through a certain issue, right? And I know there's probably some desperate need to like oversee every little thing and micromanage every little thing that everyone else is doing. But I think that's where the confusion and the chaos can start to worsen. And it's better for us to just start with our communities and move in this almost like stages of unity, where we start at our basic root level and then move up to the next community level and the next community level. So like our homes, our immediate circles, our neighborhood, our town, state, country, globe. Because and I'm not saying ignore global issues while working all this out. I'm absolutely not saying that. I'm saying we kind of have to balance focusing on our own community's duties at these different levels. If we get confused, go back to the root, i.e. your own home, and then just start building from there. And then just kind of like check in every time you think you need to make sure that there isn't also help needed out in the world, like in certain high conflict areas that I am sure you can guess the name of. And I think that sense of groundedness creates more of it just creates more safety, I think. So this is quite a ramble that I'm on right now. But I just think that maybe the best way to summarize it is the Purple Revolution. It seems to me to be just a flicker of an idea that we can unify and make things better, but the way that it is being handled needs to be reevaluated. And I think that it's better, in my humble opinion, that we just evaluate what unity looks like altogether and how we can help and be proactive without bypassing. How do we do all that without bypassing this time around? Because the cycle keeps repeating throughout history, and I think we need to kind of like reevaluate and sort of innovate the way we look at unity altogether, so that things get resolved more completely. It won't be perfect, but more completely, rather than just repeating and continuing more and more cycles of trauma by bypassing all these other steps, or bypassing a bunch of boundaries that need to be set. We can make it something better and much different this time, especially if we factor in, what is necessary in order for us to, if we factor in the effects of trauma and just trying to bypass trauma or ignore the impact of our actions, right? That's mainly it. But I'm going to go to sleep after I'm done with my laundry here. Oh, and I have to wash dishes, but I don't know. Maybe I'll just go to bed. I hope that at least some of this made some sense, and I appreciate you if you made it this far in the video. And I hope you stay cozy and wear your favorite pajamas and hang out in your favorite peaceful spot today. So I appreciate you, and you all have a good night. Thanks. Just a quick side note too. If the idea I'm putting out needs further clarification, feel free to leave me a comment, or if you want to open up a further discussion, that's lovely. I'm not the debate type of person, but I always am open to civil, respectful discussion, especially when it's centered with a motive of empathy. And if I feel like I need to further articulate these ideas in a better way later on, I will post more about it. But yeah, I'm just putting my thoughts on here. And if it helped you, fantastic. But overall, I just hope that everybody finds the wisdom that they need to find. Thank you.